From the New York Times, it's The Headlines. I'm Tracy Mumford. Today's Tuesday, April 8th. Here's what we're covering. The Supreme Court has issued 2 emergency rulings on the Trump administration's immigration policies that, at least for now, are victories for President Trump. Last night, the court ruled the administration can continue deporting Venezuelan migrants that it's accused of being violent gang members trying to invade the U.S. The administration has been citing the Alien Enemies Act, a wartime power from the 1700s, in carrying out those deportations. The court didn't rule on whether that's constitutional or not. Instead, it made a more narrow ruling that lawyers for the Venezuelans had filed their challenge to the deportations in the wrong court. The Supreme Court said that since the men had been held in Texas, the case should have started there and not in Washington, D.C. While the administration can now press forward with its deportation plans, all 9 justices did agree that the government has to give the detainees advance notice that it plans to deport them and the opportunity to challenge that. Some of the migrants who've already been deported under the Alien Enemies Act have had little to no due process. Also, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily blocked a lower court's order that required the government to bring back a man it deported by mistake to El Salvador. Roberts issued an administrative stay in the case until the justices have time to consider it further. That's expected to happen in the next few days. Meanwhile, the Times has learned that the Trump administration is gearing up for a massive expansion of its deportation efforts. ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, has asked contractors to submit proposals for detention facilities, transportation, security guards, and other services, and said the budget could be up to $45 billion for the next 2 years. By comparison, ICE spent about $3.5 billion on similar operations last fiscal year. The agency doesn't yet have the money. It will need Congress for that. But the call for proposals is the first concrete sign that it's preparing to quickly scale up detentions in the U.S.
Obviously, Thursday, Friday, ugly sessions. We get into Monday, and it continues.
Monday was another brutal and chaotic day on the stock market as President Trump's tariffs continue to rock the global economy. In a sign of just how volatile the markets are, reports that Trump was considering pausing the tariffs sent stocks shooting up. Investors let out a sigh of relief. Then it turned out the reports were false and stocks fell back down. And governments around the world are just as on edge as investors. They've been racing to schedule phone calls with the White House or send delegations in the hopes they can negotiate on the tariffs, even as the president has said the surcharges are here to stay. Yesterday at the White House, reporters pressed Trump on the issue.
There have been some mixed messages from your administration. You're talking about negotiations, and yet others in your administration are saying that these tariffs are actually permanent. What is the action?
Well, it could be. They can both be true. There can be permanent tariffs, and there can also be negotiations. Because
what he's been saying when people call him, as happened over the weekend, I've spoken to a few people who spoke to him privately over the weekend, is in these conversations he's boasting. He's saying, everyone's calling me, they're all kissing my ass, they all want to do deals, they're begging me. You know, he's in that kind of a mode.
My colleague Jonathan Swan is on today's episode of The Daily with an inside look at how the White House has been rolling out the tariffs and if Trump is serious about keeping them in place or if they're a high-stakes negotiating tactic.
You know, you ask that question of people around him and they say, well, no, not really. He might do some deals, but actually, no, he's really quite set on this idea of eliminating trade deficits and building things here in America. So you have these 2 things running into each other. One problem that some of his advisors have, I would say most of his advisors have, if they're being honest, is get criticized a lot for, well, your messaging is so all over the place. It's like, yeah, no kidding. Because the man
His
in
messaging
charge,
is all over the place.
yeah, from one minute to the other, it's like he's in deal-making mode and then he's in no, this is an economic revolution and you need to hang tough. You're getting these competing messages.
Now, 3 quick updates from the Trump administration. First,
fluoride should not be in our water. It makes no sense to have it in our water supply.
And I'm very, very proud of this state for being the first state to ban it, and I hope many more will come.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. called on states to ban the practice of adding fluoride to drinking water, a move that could undercut decades of public health efforts to prevent tooth decay. He made the remarks in Utah, where a statewide ban on fluoride kicks in next month. While some studies have found that fluoride in very high doses can have negative health effects, dentists and many medical experts say that the amount being added to drinking water is safe and essential for protecting oral health. Also, The Times has learned that Attorney General Pam Bondi wants to roll back a number of gun control measures, reversing actions that the Biden administration put in place. She's expected to eliminate a zero-tolerance policy that strips licenses from gun dealers who are found to have skipped background checks or falsified records. And she's looking to scrap other policies, including one that requires background checks for private gun sales. And
we're having direct talks with Iran, and they've started. It'll go on Saturday. We have a very big meeting, and we'll see what can happen.
President Trump said the U.S. will begin negotiations with Iran this weekend in hopes of reining in the country's nuclear program. It's a major reversal for Trump, who pulled the U.S. out of the last nuclear agreement with Iran during his first term. Since then, Iran has built up its capabilities and now has enough fuel to quickly build a half-dozen nuclear weapons. Iranian officials told The Times the talks will only begin with intermediaries, but that the countries could engage directly if the initial meetings go well. Trump threatened that if the two sides don't reach an agreement, Iran would be in, quote, great danger. And finally, scientists have brought back the ancient, extinct dire wolf, or something close to it. If you thought dire wolves were only a thing from the fantasy series Game of Thrones, you are not alone. They've been gone for over 13,000 years, but they used to dominate southern Canada and the U.S. They're bigger than gray wolves, with massive teeth, and they have thick white fur. Researchers were able to retrieve DNA from some dire wolf fossils a few years ago, and another group of scientists says it edited the genes of other wolves to match those. They then created embryos from the edited genes, and there you go. Romulus, Remus, and Khaleesi were born. The pups appear to have some traits of the dire wolf. The company behind the experiment has worked on trying to bring back other ancient or lost species too, like the woolly mammoth and the dodo bird. But some hope this kind of research could also be used with animals that aren't totally gone yet, by helping boost the population of species on the verge of extinction. Those are the headlines. I'm Tracy Mumford. We'll be back tomorrow.